I spent years of my life reaching for things that felt like relief. Food, alcohol, avoidance, every single one felt like it was doing something positive for me at the time, but only in the long term took me further into my problems. And I want to share with you what I wish someone had told me back then. For me, this process of going forward only to go further back was a long journey. It started off when I was 12. I was being bullied in school, and the first thing I would do is I would go home and I would use food for comfort. It would give me the comfort up front, but long term it led to body image issues and an eating disorder. A little bit further down the line, I used alcohol as a way to get over social anxiety. I love being a big flamboyant person these days, but when I was 15, I was scared people would find me to be too much. I already had a problem with some people thinking of me as not enough. I didn't want both ends of that spectrum. So I would use alcohol as a way to quiet down that inner critic in there. Problem is, whenever the alcohol wore off, A, I'd have a hangover, and B, that inner critic had stories for days to use against me to make me feel even worse, to make me hide that part of my personality even more. Into my 20s, this led into drugs. I was desperate to fit in with a group of people, which might not seem like something a 20-something would do, but I just spent my teens feeling like I didn't belong. I was desperate to belong somewhere, so when this group of people that all seemed really cool to me were taking drugs, I forgot everything I ever thought about them and I jumped in. The problem with drugs is before the bad, you get the high. And that high is something that my immediate brain would crave like you wouldn't believe. And I didn't think about future Dave's problems on that day. I thought, I'm having a good time. Let's keep it rolling. The problem is that those bad days came and they came hard. And each one of these behaviours comes with a promise of making you feel good in the short term, only to take away from you in the long term. I didn't have the language for what I was doing then, but now I do, and that changed everything, because you can't fix what you can't name. You may think they've already got a name, they're called bad habits, but bad habits doesn't tell the full story, so I rename them as boomerangs. A boomerang goes forward only to come whipping back later. And if we think about each and every one of these behaviours, the problem with it is the fact that it gave you something good first. Your brain begins to crave that immediate thing, and it forgets that the boomerang's coming back later. By understanding this, and then by learning a powerful question, what positive do I get from this behaviour? I was able to then start moving forward. See, identifying the problem is one thing, but identifying the why, identifying the reason behind the problem, that is significantly more powerful. If I look back, the food wasn't just for the sake of food. The why behind it, the positive I got from it, was comfort. If I look back, the alcohol wasn't just for the sake of alcohol and being a teenager and experimenting. It was to allow me to be the person I wanted to be, but I felt too insecure to just get up and be. And if we look at the drugs, I'm sure I enjoyed the highs at the time, but there was so much more than that driving that behaviour. It was that need to fit in. It was maybe even the belief that if I didn't do this, I wouldn't have anybody. This reminds me of a story of one of my clients, probably about 8 years or so ago now. When I asked her, what is the positive you get from drinking? She says, it's the only way in which I socialise. She wasn't drinking for drinking's sake. She was drinking because she believed that without going out for a few drinks with her friends, she wouldn't have any friends to go out with. The follow-up question to what is the positive that I get from this is how else could I get that positive? So I asked her, how else could you get that positive of spending time with your friends? How else could you spend time with your friends? And she came up with a bunch of ideas. Coffee shops, lunches, the cinema. All of these things allowed her to construct a new social system with her existing friends that didn't rely on alcohol. So the problem with most bad habits is that they're boomerangs. They give us something positive first, they make us crave it before costing us later. But what about good habits? Again, I thought the words good habits were just too simple. Because the thing with good habits is they take time, they take effort, they take work. You don't just pick them up in the same way that you would a bad habit. Why is that? It's not because we're just weak humans that prefer to do the fun bad stuff rather than the hard good stuff. There's something more to it than that. And it comes back to this idea of instant gratification. So I renamed good habits as slingshots. With a slingshot, you have to pull it back. You have to put it under tension before you let it fly forward. The work comes first. Why is it important to highlight this? Well, simply because when things don't come easy, when things don't come natural, we can often turn inward and blame ourselves, think of ourselves as weak or lazy and just give up. And that's just not the case at all. Anything that is good, anything that is worth doing will cost you up front. And it'll cost you time, or it'll cost you money, or it'll cost you energy, or in some cases, all three. If you are finding that transition difficult, it is not a case of you being weak or being a failure. It is because it is a challenge. And challenges are meant to be challenging. Now, before you leave, I want to give you a framework that I use to make all of this stick. I've already introduced you to the first two questions in what I call the 3 A's. The 3 A's are awareness, alternatives, and accountability. Awareness is what am I doing, but more importantly, what positive do I get from this behaviour? Alternatives is what else could I do, or how else could I achieve the same positive without using a boomerang behaviour? And accountability is where you become your own coach. If you were to work with me one-to-one, I would be the person that you'd be accountable to. And the 2 key things that I've got to get right are the same 2 key things that you've got to get right, which is what I would say to you on the days you get it right and what I would say to you on the days you get it wrong. And look, I've been teaching this model for years, and I even call it the world's worst business model, because what I'm actually telling you to do is to do for yourself what I would do for you if I was your coach. And that is to talk to yourself like you would a coach. Because believe it or not, one of the biggest things that stops us from being able to move forward with any behaviour change is the way that we coach ourselves internally. So many people do it where they change something and they get it right for one day, and that inner voice just wants to say, so what? It's only one day. I bet you'll go back to the old thing tomorrow. Imagine you were paying me for my service and you came to me for that. I would like to think that you would fire me instantly and leave a terribly scathing review of me somewhere. I just wouldn't say that because it just wouldn't help. So this is why you need to talk to yourself like you would if you were coaching them, a best friend or your own child if you were trying to get them through something. You want to big yourself up on the days you get it right. If you were to come to me and our goal was for you to stop drinking and you tell me, I've had a day where I don't drink when normally you drink every day, I'm going to be pumped. I'm going to be so excited for you. I'm going to big you up. I'm going to tell you how important that is. And that'll make you feel good. And it's great when it comes from me, but it's better when it comes from you. If you tell yourself that, you then want to go back and do that work again the next day. If you beat yourself up and say, so what, it's only one day, big deal, you're not going to feel inspired to do that work again tomorrow. So that's when we get it right. But what about the days we get it wrong? Relapses, slip-ups, they are part of so many people's journeys. And how we treat ourselves on that day is so important. Again, if you were to come to me and say, oh, I've just gone 6 months without drinking and I've just drank, you wouldn't want me to turn around and go, oh, you're such a loser. You've just thrown all that time away. I can't believe it. You had 6 months behind you. What are you doing? That just wouldn't work. It'd make you feel terrible, and it'd actually make you probably want to hang up the phone on me and go and grab another drink. So that's why it's so important that you don't do that inside your own head. You don't want to beat yourself up. You want to big yourself up. We big ourselves up when we get it right. When we get it wrong, the most important thing is compassion. You give yourself another chance. If you've spent the last several years drinking every single day and you've just had 6 months where you didn't, regardless of the fact that you've had one more drink, that is still a massive success. You are still on the way to success. And actually, how you talk to yourself in that moment right there will determine whether you go back to the old behaviour or whether you continue on the new path and start another streak. Be proud of yourself when you get it right. Be compassionate with yourself and encouraging when you get it wrong. Here's what I want you to take from this. Your boomerangs are not evidence that you are weak or broken. They're evidence that you are human, and at some point you needed what they gave for you. The problem is, As we continue with them, they either stop giving us what we need or they cost us far too much. And no one ever showed you what to do at that point. So if that is you, today, ask yourself that question. What positives do I get from this? How else could I get that positive? And how am I going to treat myself when I get it right?